Good morning. It's Monday and it's Reflections, and I'm back from actually a 4-week sabbatical from Reflections. I've been gone 3 weeks, and the interesting thing to share with you this Monday morning is that the day I left Iowa, the rains started, and they came and they came and they came, and as people called from home, they told me how draining, how exhausting these rains were. 4 inches at a time, 5 inches at a time, filling the rivers. And then toward the end of my 3 weeks, actually during a time when I was in Orlando, I started hearing on the national news about the flooding of the Cedar River and the breaking of the levees in Cedar Rapids, which was the first part of the flood. The flood continues. It's going on today, downriver, down the Mississippi, breaking levees and flooding homes and communities. But the big news seemed to be, at the time, the flooding of Cedar Rapids. And as I watched my home area flood, it was a very hard feeling, a surreal feeling to describe. Watching the beautiful downtown area of the city of Cedar Rapids up to the first and second floors, the buildings are now ghost town. They may be unusable. It's hard to know what's going on with all the foundations and all the homes along the river. Many of them are lost. It'll be years before this whole area is rebuilt, or perhaps rebuilt in a new way. So the work is just beginning. And as we flew in last Sunday and flew over this area, my husband Mark and I were shocked. It was just shocking. And, you know, we're all aware, we read about the tsunami and the earthquake in China and all those things where so many hundreds of thousands of homes are destroyed and people displaced and don't survive, etc. The loss is tremendous. And here the loss came to the heartland of the United States. So the metaphor is not lost on me. I felt very much this was a cleansing of the heart. The toxins, the emotional pain, a cleansing of the heartland so that the arteries and veins and valves and everything could work as they were intended, energetically we're speaking, as the heartland is filled with a series of rivers, the Mississippi, of course, being the biggest one, and all the tributaries flow into the Mississippi, which then, of course, flows into the Gulf of Mexico. So there was a true cleansing of the heart. And to cleanse a heart, you have to rip it open. And this talks of the loss. So this is the quote that I use that came from my good friend Bonnie Ogren, who's a wonderful astrologer. And, you know, the point is well taken. It's when we're stripped of everything, and now I'm watching people I know, people I'm connected to, people who have family, that have lost literally everything. But what do they have? They have themselves. They have themselves. All the outside parts of their lives are gone. Many lost jobs because the whole many business areas were flooded, as well as homes, as well as all their belongings. And if they could return to their homes, they often returned to find uninhabitable, and not knowing when they possibly could be. So you're taken down to your lowest common denominator at that point, but it is at that point where you find, as Bonnie said, your will, your power, to know truly who you are. With all the outside influences, I don't know that you do find your core. And so as these things happen on our earth, yes, they're disasters, they're earth changes, and they're emotionally ripping. But the greater part, too, to see is the abandonment of shedding and getting rid of all those things that don't serve the flow, the freedom. There's a poem I've included at the bottom of this email by Mary Crooks. It's a hymn to the river. And as she watched the levee break down in her community in Iowa City, and it began to flood, and as she watched, yes, her heart broke for the devastation and the pain that people were suffering. But an even more magnificent thing was that the river broke free. The river broke free of boundaries. It broke free of impediments. It carried with it junk, useless junk, it carried it and deposited it wherever it decided, and then left and went back into its banks and went on its way. So with every disaster, there is the good. Nature is showing us this is how we cleanse. We go in there, we break it open, we take out all the stuff. If any of you have ever done a colon cleanse, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It can be painful. It pushes and strips away all that stuff that's residue that you're holding on to that you no longer need. And that's true emotionally too. So this is not only happening to the people of Iowa or the people of China or the people in Indonesia when the tsunami hit and all over. It's happening to everybody because we're all connected. And those souls who choose to experience it on a physical level are moving through and helping those of us who are understanding it on an emotional and spiritual level. And because we're all connected, we are all changed by this. And it's no longer something over there or something over here, which still touched me and I understood. But now it's something right here in the heartland of our country. So it's a time to realize what it's like not to have all the foundations you created to stand on, but they detract from who you are, from the power and truth of your being. And in this life, many have chosen to experience that on a physical level. The other thing that I think is really important to share with all of you is that this flooding is so reminiscent of recreation. You know, of science will tell you you have to create chaos and break apart what is there to create the new. If you want a new building, you have to put a new foundation. You have to take out the old foundation. And these floods are insisting that we do that. They're insisting that we grow. They're insisting that we learn who we are inside as well as out. So as the levees and the bridges and the dams and all the things constructed to keep the river safe disappear, then we learn where our real safety is. You know, and it's nowhere more apparent than in Egypt on the Nile when we're there, that they've built the dams and made the big lakes and controlled the flooding of the Nile. But I'll tell you what, the truth is that river longs to run free. It longs to flood the banks to create the farmland. You don't need cities on the river anymore. You used to have them there for transportation, but really, cities don't need to be on a river. Land needs to be on a river. Farmland and growing land. So it's made a difference. You'll feel it in the crops, the corn crops, the soy crops, all that Iowa provides, and Wisconsin, Illinois, and Missouri are profoundly affected. So my message for the great flood of 2008 is to take it within yourself and understand it in the deepest place. That is almost the most help you can give right now. So read the poem Mary wrote, The Hymn to the River, and feel it in yourself. Feedback's always welcome. Have a great Monday.